Good day, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. Last time we talked about the counselor as a therapeutic person that included the importance of personal therapy for counselors. And we also discussed the importance of values in the counseling process, as well as the concept of informed consent. Now, we will delve into the ethical practice in counseling. As for our objective, you are expected to explain what is involved in becoming an ethical counselor and identify characteristics and procedural steps of ethical decision making. What is ethics in counseling? So, we have three concepts, with one being the approach. So, mandatory ethics is the minimum level of our professional practice, meaning, no, there are code of ethics, there are laws pertaining to what is the ethical acts or ethical behavior for this kind of profession. So as counselor, as teachers, no, we adhere to these documents, to these frameworks, because it is required for us. Kaya nga siya mandatory. The second one would be aspirational ethics. So this is higher than the mandatory ethics and even highest no standard of conduct, thinking of conduct. Meaning, um, hindi mo siya ginagawa not just because mandatory ito, but because it is your calling, ito yung value mo, ito yung pinaniniwalaan mong duty mo, hindi lamang siya required. Okay. And that brings us to the two bases of ethics. First one is the fear-based. Ibig sabihin, ginagawa mo lang maging mabuting counselor because takot ka sa sanction, takot ka ma-revoke yung license mo. And even teacher, ginagawa mo lang yung duty mo, ginagawa mo lang pagiging fair, hindi ka nananakit ng estudyante dahil takot kang ma-revoke yung lisensya mo. Whereas sa concerns-based ethics, no, yung pinaka-core ng ethical principle mo would be the welfare of your student or your client. So, di mo siya ginagawa dahil alam mong hindi ito makabubuti sa client mo. No, lahat ng ginagawa mo ay gusto mo yung nakabubuti lang sa student mo or yung sa client mo. And this aspirational ethics and concern-based ethics, no, is are an element are elements of positive ethics. So this is an approach that does the best for clients over simply complying with what is required or what is mandatory. Okay. Oh, malinaw naman iyon, no? Na ang mandatory ethics, the minimum. Aspirational ethics is the highest standards. Aspirational ethics and concern-based ethics are reflections of a positive ethics. So how to become an ethical counselor? First is education. So you have to complete a degree in counseling or a related field. So dahil ang values education ay allied discipline ng counseling, no? May assumption tayo na qualified tayo maging counselor, pero that's not the case. Na kahit na allied discipline tayo, no, we have to complete a degree or have extra units for us to be professionally qualified sa counseling. Paano, no? Kahit undergrad ay values education, you can pursue a master's or doctorate degree in counseling, no, for you to be able to practice counseling in profession. And this is stipulated in the law, Guidance and Counseling Act of 2004. So hindi talaga siya optional, but it is required if you wish to practice counseling, no, as your profession. on one hand, no, dahil we are faced with the reality that there is a scarcity of counselors in our country, and values education or ASP teachers are the ones being designated, being assigned in the guidance counseling office, the absence of RGCs. We are referred as to guidance designates or pseudo counselor, but that doesn't mean na tayo ay professionally qualified to practice counseling. That's why if mayroong case na nilalapit, in case na we are designate, no, we have the duty to make a referral talaga sa case ng bata sa isang RGC. Wala tayong kakayahan, no, para directly mag-intervene doon sa case, but we just have to be competent, no, in terms of the first aid sa mental health ng bata. Okay. Second, so counseling relationship. Ito naman yung pinaka-core ng lahat ng counseling, no? Regardless of the approach or theory na mayroon ang isang counselor. And we have the concept client. So this is the person that this is the person which the counseling session centers on. So this is the center, this is the heart of your counseling session. So without the client, wala ang counseling relationship. And it is the person with whom the professional relationship is initiated. And that brings us to duty and standard of care. So counselors owe clients the legal responsibility to act in their best interest and provide a level of care that is consistent with all counselors. So this aligns with the ethical standards na nasabi nating mga batas kanina. So in a nutshell, duty is the legal responsibility and standard of care is a level of care that is consistent with other counselors. And this level of care comprises the characteristics the teacher Ange mentioned. As guidance counselor, no, we owe our clients communication, empathy, compassion, genuine connection, cultural competence, and whatnot. Another would be the informed consent. So this is what defines the counseling relationship, because dito naka-stipulate na yung mga procedures, naka-define kung ano dapat yung hangganan, kung ano dapat yung gawin, ng client and ng counselor. And this protects both the counselor and counselee, as it prevents misunderstanding and disappointment that may lead to legal issues. And discuss na ito ni Teacher Marge. And last counseling relationship concept is the termination of the counseling relationship per se. First one is the client-initiated termination. As we all know, the clients have the autonomy, they have the right to withdraw and cancel the relationship anytime, no? But there are cases that the termination is not explicitly stated. Instead of the pen and paper agreement, bigla na lang nag-ghost si client. And that's when the counselor needs to contact the client, to communicate with the client na kung ano ang kung ito-terminate ba talaga or i-co-continue yung relationship. Kasi kailangan clear sa kanilang dalawa kung ano yung gusto nilang mangyari sa relationship. And para din maiwasan yung legal issues sa puntong yon. And second yung counselor initiated termination and referral. If the counselor believes that they do not have the capacity to make interventions or to respond to the client's need, this this is parang this is the resort, the last resort, or the decision talaga to terminate and to refer the client to other counselors. Because as we all know, no, as we discussed sa presentation with Sir March, no, no guarantees, no, wala dapat claims na mare-resolve agad. Pero as counselors, you have the duty not to do your best. Pero there are instances nga na hindi mo na foresee yung ganoong bagay kung kaya na hindi na kaya ng kakayahan mo and kailangan na ng referral. So referral yung bibigay mo or i ibibigay mo yung case sa ibang counselor na ire-refer mo si client sa iba para mas effectively ma-resolve yung kanyang issue. Third one is the professional boundaries. So ito yung pagse-set ng limits or pagde-define kung ano yung hangganan ng roles and responsibilities ng bawat isa. And there are 3 types of boundary incursions which we will determine whether it's unethical or ethical. First one is the boundary blurring. So this is definitely not unethical kasi hindi naman 'to intentional talaga na nagkita kayo, nag-date kayo or lumabas kayo. Example ay si counselor may anak and si client may anak din and yung anak nila ay nagkasama 'no, magkaklase pala sa isang school. And may family day so nandoon sila then kita sila ta's nagkaroon ng onting chit-chat, siyempre kamustahan ganyan. Pero ayun, hindi naman nag-mention na about sa work. And nag-talk lang about sa kanilang mga anak. So, that's not unethical dahil hindi naman siya intentional, no? Socially nag-cross lang sila ng path. Second one is boundary extending. So, this happens when may intentional na yung pag cross ng path ng counselor and ng client. For example, si client ay iniimbitahan si counselor sa kanyang birthday party or sa kanyang opening ng kanyang store, ganyan. Pero, hindi naman natin masasabi 'no, na ethical or unethical ito. Bakit? Bakit hindi natin pala masabi na unethical or ethical ito? Dahil it depends on the situation. Upon careful evaluation and consulting with your colleagues, no, minsan kasi yung mga ganitong invitation, yung pagpunta ay maaring beneficial for the client. And kung beneficial ito upon evaluation ay maaari mo itong gawin. Pero kung hindi naman, wala namang benefits na matatanggap si client 'no, ay hindi siya ethical. So this is boundary extending, siya, it depends yung ano niya, pagiging ethical niya ay depende. And last one would be the boundary violations. Ito talaga at all times ay unethical dahil may vina-violate ka talagang boundary. Ito ay katulad ng sexual and romantic relationship ay between the counselor and client uh, or mag-establish ka ng business partnership 'no, sa pagitan ng counselor and client. Kasi in nature, may power dynamics and as we all know, na counselor or teachers have the upper hand. Sila may authority. Yung client and yung student may be inferior pagdating sa decision making. Although sa counseling, no, kinikilala natin yung equal responsibility, no, and yung ownership sa counseling session. Kumbaga, equally distributed dapat ang power. Pero inherently, may ganoon kasing pagtingin. So, ina-avoid iyon dahil exploitative siya in nature. We have the concept of dual or multiple relationships as to why we should avoid establishing a therapeutic connection with our loved ones. Um, and not just loved ones, but another relationship, either professional or non-professional, after a previous relationship has ended. So, it does not necessarily mean na yung previous relationship has ended ay yung counseling. Pero halimbawa, ikaw yung counselor tapos nalaman mo ang client ay ex mo pala. Nag-end na yung romantic relationship niyo. Kahit na hindi na kayo magkasintahan, unethical pa rin na i-counsel mo siya kasi, um, nagkakaroon ng dual relationship. Hindi lang kayo hindi lang kayo client counselee but mag-ex, parang ganoon. Kahit na sa mga, sabihin natin, previous families natin, kung broken family, hindi rin siya puwede or hindi rin puwede yung currently ay family mo or loved one mo. Dahil ayun ay dual and multiple relationship. And, classified din siya as boundary violation, which is the no-no talaga sa 3 types of boundary incursions. This brings us to the repercussions or the negative outcomes of dual relationships. First one is the loss of objectivity and clarity. Dahil 'pag ang kinousel natin ay yung mayroon na mayroon tayong established na relationship prior, meron na tayong bias and nakakaapekto yung pagtingin natin sa kanila, yung ating relationship with them, yung ating connection with them. For example, yung ex mo kina-counsel mo, 'di ba parang baka meron ka pang, unconscious, parang may unconscious thoughts ka pa na alam mo na, na galit ka pa sa kanya although na-resolve naman 'no, maaaring makaapekto, maging harmful sa relationship niyo kaya ina-avoid yun or kahit na pamilya. Kasi maaaring sa session niyong dalawa 'no, dun mag-arise yung internal conflict mo pala sa ano mo, parents mo or sa kapatid mo. So, kailangan iwasan talaga yung dual relationship. And second, yung potential for misunderstanding 'no, dun nga maaaring mag-arise yung mga hidden, yung mga internally na binaon mo na tapos biglang nag-arise 'no, nag-relapse ka ulit. So, and third one, is yung conflict of interest. Fourth one, breach of confidentiality and privacy. Self-explanatory naman ito mga 'to. And fifth one, exploitation na mention ko earlier. Fourth one is the confidentiality and privacy. Kung ang counseling relationship is the core that cuts across all perspective, confidentiality, and privacy, siguro will be considered as the fundamental or the core ethical principle in counseling. Alam naman natin 'to 'no, this refers to providing 'no, protection or giving or protecting your client's information, written or non-written, verbal or non-verbal. Pero may mga instances na may exception. First one, serious and foreseeable harm to self and others and legal requirements. For example 'no, alam mo namang may suicidal tendencies si client and explicitly stated na ha-harm yung sarili niya. Trigger warning 'no, maaari mo ng i-report 'no sa mga medical practitioner or other authorities na maaaring makapag-intervene hindi hindi mo na kung hindi mo na sa tingin mo hindi na responsibility ng profession mo. And of course, yung harm to others 'no, maaaring explicitly 'no or nag-imply siya na may papatayin siya, something like that 'no, dapat i-report na ito sa mga authority. So ito talaga i-breach mo ng confidentiality if necessary. And of course, court order disclosure, maaaring yung client mo ay suspect or accomplice or, mayroong or nadamay siya or kasama siya talaga sa kaso 'no, and kailangan na ito ng korte 'no, um, required na i-di-disclose mo yung information about your client. And of course, the third one, if your client is a minor or a person with an intellectual disability or other disability na hindi hindi nila kaya makapagbigay ng voluntary consent, then puwede mong i-disclose yung confidential information ng iyong client. So merong nagtanong, um, ethical ba na i-disclose sa colleagues, sa kapwa mo counselor yung case ng client mo? Ano sa tingin niyo yung sagot? Siyempre ethical siya dahil again 'no, yung pag-e-evaluate, pag-a-assess with your colleagues is a way to improve your professional practice, yung consultation with them. But then again 'no, we have the concept of confidentiality and privacy, meaning to say 'no, magfo-focus lang ang usapin niyo sa case 'no, but not yung gossiping, yung hindi wala kang ini-name drop, you shouldn't mention names, physical features or characteristics that will point to the person. So, kailangan ng purpose niyo ay to resolve the case or may kailangan ko talaga ng tulong dun sa kaso niya. Pero bawal yung pagne-name drop again and yung mga bagay na magre-reveal sa identity ni client kasi dun na pumapasok yung violation ng confidentiality and privacy. The fifth one, legal and ethical decision making. It is important for counselors to use frameworks or to follow procedures and ethical decision making to be an ethical counselor, no? Because pag pag sinusunod mo ito, no, you consider laws, you consider existing code of ethics guidelines, you seek consultation and whatnot. And of course, the purpose of following this is to safeguard the welfare of your and rights of your clients. And the core and the parang main reference for decision making will be the professional ethics and some relevant laws. Particularly in the Code of Ethics for Registered and Licensed Guidance. Nandiyan naka-stipulate yung ethical guidelines. Ano mangyayari 'no, once we violate the Code of Ethics? Now here comes the duty of care and potential malpractice liability. We have four types. So first one, negligence. Always remember that this is unintentional violation of an obligation, and this may be this may not be always uh related to a profession. Negligence happens when when someone violates a duty they owe to another person. So that is negligence. And it shall include no, four elements, including duty, breach, causation, and damages. Whereas malpractice, medyo similar sa negligence, but this is more of a professional legal issue, and it is usually a civil case filed filed against professional counselors, and always remember that this is intentional as opposed to negligence na unintentional, and it may include no several acts of negligence. And third one is intentional torts. It happens when a counselor intentionally steps on the right of their client. Not necessarily yung right sa informed consent, but their right no, as a human person. And fourth one is criminal action. When a counselor becomes an accomplice sa isang criminal act. we will have a short activity. No, I will present some situations, and you should identify or determine which which type of liability the situation is. Okay, first one, counselor initiates a sexual relationship with his client. Na count of 3, no, kailangan yung sabihin yung tamang sagot. 1, 2, 3. Okay. The correct answer is malpractice because yung sexual relationship is intentional, you're intentionally breaching the code of ethics and your responsibility as a counselor. Second one, a therapist assists her client in drug trafficking. 3, 2, 1. Okay. So the correct answer is, okay, I apologize for this typographical error, but the correct answer is criminal. And a counselor fails to take appropriate action to address sexual violence experienced by a female student despite having knowledge thereof. 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay. The correct answer is negligence. Bakit? And even if the school counselor fails, now we don't have any context as to why they fail to take appropriate action. They might be preoccupied with other tasks to do, but always remember that being bombarded with other commitments doesn't excuse is a counselor to respond to this issue, kasi it is their duty to address the concern of their client. So it falls under negligence of duty. The counselor discloses the information of his client, a suspect, to the media outlets. 3, 2, 1. Okay. The correct answer is intentional torts. Because ang violate na right ay yung right to privacy and confidentiality. Again, we'll review negligence, malpractice, intentional torts, and criminal action. Okay. Now we have the legal and ethical decision-making framework according to Wheeler and Bertram 2015. So this is one of the two frameworks for ethical decision-making. So first one, you should define the problem, the limits of issues, identify the relevant variables, ano yung pwedeng maapektuhan, sino yung pwedeng maapektuhan, ano yung sanhi, ano yung bunga. Third, be alert to personal influence, including your disposition, your biases. Fourth, obtain outside perspective, particularly seek advice from colleagues. Fifth, enumerate options and consequences. Sixth, decide and take action. Seventh, document decision-making and follow-up actions. This is supplemented by Corey et al. 2015. Medyo magkaparehas lang sila actually, but this is more detailed. Nag-add yung look at the relevant ethics code or code of ethics for general guidance on the matter, and of course consider the applicable laws and regulations and how they have an impact on the ethical dilemma, and seek consultation same as the previous one. 6, brainstorm, list down the possible options and also the respective consequences and reflect on the implications. And 8, decide on the best possible course of action. 6, to maintain an ethical practice, you should have professional or maintain your professional competence. And this is supported by the Code of Ethics for Registered and Licensed Guidance and Guidance and Counseling Act of 2004. So bakit, enhancing your professional competence, no, is always should be always geared toward the welfare or the betterment of your client. So this is necessary, to provide quality counseling services. Other duties of a counselor is assessment and diagnosis. Now we should be careful when using assessment and diagnosis because sometimes it can be a barrier between the counselor and the client. Bakit nga ba, no? There are ethnic minorities uh, that have this specific value which may be different, no, sa majority. For example, um, Asians, no, sa Western countries, usually they are the ethnic. No, they're not ethnic minorities, but they are the minority. Sa context na lang to. They are the minority, pero hindi sila ethnic minority. They are the minority in the population. No, Asians, no, are known to have a collective culture. They are known to be family oriented. Okay, what happens, no, sa case ng isang Filipino migrant sa US na family-oriented, then a problem comes in when their eldest daughter, no, chooses to move out, no, sa bahay nila. Pero as Filipinos, no, hindi natin kinagasnan yung pagkakanya-kanya, no, and parang nag-cause siya ng conflict sa family, and to resolve that issue na they go to counseling, and yung diagnosis ng isang American counselor is yung parang attachment yung dilemma nung daughter, no, na ayaw niya pero may gustuhan siya, and then gusto niya i-reconcile, gusto niya malapit siya sa family niya, pero at the same time gusto niya ng self-growth, parang gusto niya i-reconcile yon, and parang ang pagtingin ng isang counselor ay maladaptive behavior yon because sa mga Americans, no, they are known to be individualist. Okay? And the individualist competitive, nag-iiba yung culture. And kung ang American counselor ay gano'n ang pagtingin, no, yung may yung iba yung cultural background nila, maaaring i-diagnose niya si client, no, na may maladaptive behavior, na hindi normal yung ganong behavior niya. Pero sa context nating mga Filipinos, Asians as collective, meron tayong high regard for family, and as we all know, no, na ang number one value natin ay family, normal sa atin yun. Okay, standard yun sa atin na may pagpapalika ka sa pamilya. Pero dahil nga ang counselor ay iba ang cultural background, maaaring may diagnosis na ganoon na maaaring no, discriminatory and alienating para doon sa client. And second one naman yung technology and social media. So kahit na nag-migrate na sa technology, no, counselors must follow ethical guidelines, no, to protect the confidentiality, privacy, and also to maintain the informed consent. And third one, evidence-based practice. So counselors should use the best practices that is proven to be effective. Hindi lang yung first time mo ginamit and pag-experimentuhan mo si client, no? It's a big no-no, hindi siya ethical. Of course, sexual attraction in relationship, this is discouraged. Ina-avoid dapat ito, and multicultural competence, like what I said earlier, no, this is necessary, no, for us to be an ethical counselor. We have to be inclusive and sensitive sa practice natin. Of course, there are ethical issues that arose during the pandemic. It included the access and equity. And even before the pandemic, here in the Philippines, counseling and therapy not accessible for most Filipinos, lalo na sa mga mahihirap. At dahil nag-migrate sa remotely dahil sa health crisis 'no, mas lalo siyang naging mahirap dahil hindi naman lahat ay may resources, may gadgets, may internet. So, nag-struggle siya. And crisis management, this is the dilemma between, taking into account, uh, the need of your client kasi comfortable siguro siya sa in person, but there is a need to there is a need to prevent the spread of the virus 'no. That's why meron tayong ano, stay at home na panawagan noon. No, ito pa yung wala pang vaccine. So, merong dilemma na ganito. And technological competence, same with, yung social media nung kanina na present ay the counselor must be competent 'no, in using this kind of technology to safeguard the information of the client and also 'no, to communicate with them the details, the counseling procedures na including the benefits, limitations, and potential risk. And I think that would be all. Thank you for listening. I hope you learned something from me.